This is a problem worked through for physics at Village Tech Schools. The work shown in this problem is what must be shown from now on for every problem, every time. Now, before we get to the work, I do want to just point out here at the top, we have two numbers in the problem, and the units on these problems will automatically tell you what needs to be done for each problem. So as I get to the work that's done in any color other than blue will represent the work that needs to be shown. The work that's done in blue is explanation and will help you understand why each step is going on. Now with this, meters per second is a length over time. That will tell us that this has to be a velocity. Anytime you have length over time, so meters per second, miles per hour, that will always be a velocity. With this number, this is 1.2 meters, so that is a length. Anytime you just have length as the unit, that guarantees it will be a distance. Now, step one in our problem-solving process is to make the laundry list. The laundry list is it is a list of all the variables you have in the problem. Now, what we know is we have this 3 meters per second, and we have 1.2 meters. Now, this is a velocity, and it could be either horizontal velocity or vertical velocity. So let's draw a diagram of this problem, and that'll help us understand what's going on. In our diagram, the basic diagram for projectile motion is this parabolic path. Now, you have an object that starts here at an elevated position, and it is traveling horizontally at some velocity. So this is our horizontal velocity, v sub x. It is falling from that height, and it will develop a vertical velocity. It starts at 0, and it increases until it hits the bottom of its parabolic path. Now you also have a vertical distance, the vertical height, and you have a horizontal distance here. So we have y for vertical, x for horizontal. And of course, the fifth value is time. With any parabolic motion, with any projectile motion, you will have these 5 variables, and that is it, only these 5 variables. Now here, it says that a ball rolls with a speed of 3 meters per second across a tabletop that is 1.2 meters above the floor. Now, this word here, across, that is a word that shows horizontal motion. If you roll across something, you move horizontally across it. So that means that our v sub x, our horizontal motion, is this 3 meters per second. So this is v sub x. Now the tabletop, that is 1.2 meters above the floor. So once again, when we read the problem, we can see this word above. All right, if something is above, then that means it is a vertical difference. So the tabletop is above the floor, so our vertical distance here is 1.2 meters. Now, the question itself says, upon reaching the edge of the table, it follows a parabolic path to its landing spot on the floor. How far along the floor is this spot from the table? So it's landing. Here's the foot of the table as the table reaches the floor. So how far across the floor is this spot from the table? How far? All right, we are looking for x. X is our unknown. Now, the key is with these 3 values, you need to be able to identify the formula that you ultimately need in order to solve the problem. So step 2 is to pick the formula needed and or develop a plan in order to solve the problem. So let's do this in green. The formula for x, the formula to solve for x, that is horizontal motion. So we're looking at the formula x equals horizontal velocity multiplied by time. Now, in this formula, if we look at our laundry list, we have v sub x. That was given to us. But we don't have time, so we need time. Now, there are two formulas for time. There is time equals x divided by v sub x, which that doesn't work because ultimately we're trying to solve for time, so this we can't use. Our other formula for time is from vertical motion, where time equals the square root of 2y over g. Now, in order to solve this, we need to ask ourselves, do we have y? Well, yes, we have y. Well, what about g? Well, g is a constant. G is always going to be the same no matter what. It is 10 meters per second squared. So we have y, we have g. So if we can use this formula to find time, that can get plugged into here to find x. So step 3, we'll do this over here. All right, we need to plug in our values. And solve. So we're going to start with this second formula. We're going to start solving for time. So you always write the formula first. Time equals the square root of 2y over g. Next, you plug in the values. Now, this is a key important part. Work down the page. Do not work across. So for the next step, bring your equal sign straight down. All right, we rewrite the square root. We have 2, and then we substitute the values for each variable inside parentheses. So y is 1.2 meters, so we have 1.2 m, close parentheses, and that's over g, which is 10 meters per second. So 10 meters per second squared. Now, in your calculator, all right, now I'll do this in blue because I don't need to see this on the page, but leave the square root and do this part in your calculator. So 2 times 1.2 is 2.4. We divide by 10, we get 0.24, and we get seconds squared. Now, in your calculator, you'll do the square root of this, and that ends up equaling 0.49 seconds when you round that to 2 decimal places. So this is our value for time. We're going to use this we're going to use this value in this formula now. Now we have time. We had v sub x in our original laundry list. So if I scoot this page up a little bit, we now have x equals v sub x multiplied by time. All right, so I'll draw a line across here to show that this is now a second formula. We do the same thing. We substitute our numbers in using parentheses. We have 3 meters per second. Time, we know, is 0.49 seconds. Now we multiply this out, and we get 1.47, and meters over seconds times seconds over 1, we end up with meters, which is our value for x. When you get your final answer, put a box around it. If you have a highlighter, use a highlighter, but somehow identify that that is your final answer. Now, just to be clear, the work that I need to see on your problems, on every problem from here on out, is the values for your laundry list, and then I need to see the formula or formulas that you are going to be using. Then I need to see the numbers that substitute in for those variables, and then I need to see your answers. Remember, we're always going to round to 2 decimal places, and we're always going to box or highlight or somehow identify our final answer. So that's what I need to see on every problem. Good luck.